you can type in the chat box. If you know where SCDC is, you can type in the chat box. Okay, no, I think nobody know. Okay, so our center is actually located at Bangunan Tan Sri Kokaibo. It's at the first floor. It's at the end of the corridor. And okay, so about our service, normally what SCDC do is we are mainly in charge of career development activity and also talent development activities. So for example, we will have career fair, internship fair, industry engagement, workshop, webinar, and also career advisory. So for more information for our center, you can follow our Facebook, IG, and also LinkedIn to know more about us. Also, for any inquiry, you can also email into our email address. My colleagues will be paste all the information at the chat box so that you guys can refer it. So let's get back to our main topic today. Should I start my career as an auditor? So before we start our session, I would like to inform everyone that this webinar session will be recorded. And also, in order to entitle for the soft skill point, students are required to be present from now until the end of the session and also fill up the feedback form at the end of the session. So if there is any student who leave halfway during the webinar session, he or she will not getting any soft skill point. Yeah. So without further ado, let me introduce our speaker for today. We have Mr. Tay. Yeah, and then over to you, Mr. Tay.
All right, thank you, Bob.
Thank you.
Thank you, Kani, as well. Thank you, the Student Career Development Center, for actually having me today to share my personal view in terms of how should you start your career as an auditor, right? Actually, this is a question actually been asked by many, right? Actually, to most of you all that is now going through the exam that's going to graduate soon, right? Actually, are you going to actually do you want to start your career as an auditor, right? And these are the things that you may be asking your friends. You know, you all don't really have a view on this. Probably today the objective is to actually provide you with the clarity, right, in terms of the pros and cons as audit life, and then hopefully that you be able to give you some guidance in terms of how you're going to move forward with your career moving forward. Okay, right. So before we start, right, let me introduce myself first, right. My name is My name is Xuan, right? Actually, I'm the audit partner of HLB Lolam Chiu, right? I'm actually an ACCA graduate, graduated from Sunway. Actually, I have almost more than 10 years of experience in the audit field. Right now, currently, I'm one of the HOD of one of the audit team within HLB Lolam Chiu, right? So, as to tell you how it goes, maybe I will also share with you a bit on my audit career journey, right? So that you have an idea of actually, well, I'm in audit for many years, right? But actually, I did not stay with one firm for the whole time. So actually, I've been moving around, right? So let me show you. This is my audit career journey, right? In fact, actually, I started my career back in December 2009, right? In BDO, right? When I first graduated from Sunway, and then after I gone into BDO and started working there, right? For 1 year, 9 months, and then subsequently, I joined PwC Malaysia, right, in September 2011. Worked there for about 2 years plus, and then after that, I moved on to PwC Singapore, right, in January 2014. I spent about 2 years and 9 months there. Probably, this would be something of a question that most of you will ask. Hey, Vishen, why you go to Singapore already and then you still come back to Malaysia? Probably that is to say you all have any interest in that question. If later on, if you say you're interested, you can ask me in the Q&A, right? And then lastly, after that, after spending almost 2 years and 9 months in Singapore, right, I actually moved back into Malaysia, right, for about 10 months with PwC Malaysia. And then after that, I've joined Morrison AAC, right, in August 2017 until December 20, and I made partner, right, in January 2020, right? And then the question that you all may ask then, after that, how come you already made partner in Morrison AAC? Why did you still leave the firm and then after go to another firm called HLB Lolam Chiu, right? Technically, yes, I have moved from a firm to another firm, but actually it's not really a moving per se, because actually the reason is that HLB Lolam Chiu is actually a formation and a merger between HLB Lolam and Morrison AAC. So I'm from the Morrison AAC side, and then after that we have merged with Lelam, and therefore formed HLB Lelam Chiu, right? With the merger itself, right? We are now, can safely say, we are one of the top 10 firms within Malaysia with over 200 staff combined, right? And then after over 80 years of experience combined from both firms, because both firms have been in the market for almost 40 plus years. Okay. And most of you will be like wondering, HLB, this is not Hong Leong Bank? No, it's not Hong Leong Bank, right? So actually, HLB is a global accounting network, right? They are actually founded in 1969, right? Actually, the HLB stands for Hodgson London Brands, right? And actually, the network itself actually have 38,000 people, right? In 1,000 more than 1,000 offices across 157 countries, right? And in fact, actually, to many of you that know talks about audit firm, right? Actually, you all would know Baker Tilly, RSM, these kind of brands. And in fact, HLB is the 11th biggest global network in the world, right? And back in 2020, actually, we have won the Network of the Year award in the accounting, International Accounting Bulletin. Okay, right. So this is a quick introduction of HLB, myself, and HLB. And if you say you want to know about me or the firm or the network more, later on we have a Q&A session, right? Okay. So before we go into the main topic today, right? Should I start my career as an auditor, right? Maybe I would like to first ask the students and everyone present here, right? What is your thought at this moment, right? Do you plan to start your career after you graduate? I understand most of you are having your final exam in April, right? And subsequently, right? What is your plan? Do you plan to become an auditor? Do you plan to become a tax agent, accountant, or you want to go to other finance related role? Example, if like you're going into banking, investment banking, financial analysis, right? Or straight away you do not even want to look into account after you graduate from your accounting degree, you want to go and do other things. You want to go to marketing, you're going to start your own business, whatever it is. Or actually now you have no idea, right? Can you all share with me, in terms of what is the views that you have, or what is your idea now as what you plan to do after you graduate? You all can just type into the message box, just type in A, B, C, D, E, F, whichever that is. A or D, auditor or other financial. F, don't know yet. Okay. How about the rest? A or E, C, F, A, C, F. Okay. Okay. A, B, C. Okay. Right. So A, C, F, E, A, C, F, E. How do you have auditor and accountant, then don't know yet, and then after that you have non-accounting finance related? Okay, right. No, there's no right or wrong, right? At least you have some idea, or no, to know what you actually wanted to do, right? So all right, at least I gauge an idea. Looks like most of you have an option with auditor, but you also look in, should I go to tax agent, do I want to do accounting, or should I do other things? So before we go into why you should join or why you shouldn't join audit, maybe I just tell you what is audit first, right? So the first thing is that what exactly is an audit, right? So actually, audit is about providing an assurance that management financial reporting in all material aspects are truly and fairly presented. So when we talk about true and fair, right? What does it mean by true and fair? It's actually about the financial statement is free from material misstatements, whether due to fraud or error, and it's actually faithfully representing the financial position and financial performance of the entity, right? And the shareholders and the other stakeholders will place reliance on the audit report to get comfort or in terms of understanding the financials, right? So in order to do that, right, we as auditors actually we do a form of independent verification process, right, in accordance to the international standards on auditing, which is ISA, right, to provide something called a reasonable assurance. So reasonable assurance is something of a high level assurance, but it is not a guarantee that actually whatever we do, whatever checking we do, will give 100% detection of the material misstatements, right? Of which this brings us to the next point, right? In terms of the expectation gaps of auditors, right? Most of the time, when we as auditor, when you guys are studying, you're looking into financial statements, when you see an account being already signed off by an auditor, you expect, oh, the auditor actually has been they will identify any fraud, right? They will be, this is actually a certification 100% checking by the auditor already done, right? In terms of the responsibility, in terms of the internal control, effectiveness of the internal controls, means when you sign off as an auditor, the internal controls are effective, right? On these 3 points, in fact, these are actually never the responsibility of the auditors, right? Identification of fraud is that we don't identify the fraud, but the responsibility actually lies with the directors and the management, right? As auditors, we assess the risk and then we design audit procedures to actually respond to those risks, right? So whether or not, if after we have assessed the risk and we responded to the risk and we did not detect anything, in fact, that is not our fault unless it's negligent or we did not do enough work, right? In terms of true and fair, like I mentioned earlier, is that we are providing reasonable assurance and not absolute assurance. Means that I'm not giving 100% certificate say this is correct and stand chalk, right? And whereas for the responsible to report on effectiveness of internal control, right, is that it is also the responsibility of the directors. And in fact, the internal controls is more of we do testing on it to make sure that looking at it, is this effective or not? But actually, whether or not it's effective or is ineffective, it's actually the responsibility of the directors to make it effective, right? And lastly, right, actually is on poor governance and actually management, right? When a company fails, right, then they will pinpoint and they will just point fingers at auditor. Hey, auditor, you have given the green light and say the accounts is okay. Why did the company fail, or why did they have such a bad business, or why are they making losses? Why is it like that? In fact, that is also not the auditor's fault, because in terms of managing the company, making sure business decisions, right, all this lies with the management and also with the directors of the company. So we are an independent party, right, to verify the financial statement to make sure that it's true and fair, which is what it means by having free from material misstatements. But these are not our responsibility in terms of the 4 areas that I've highlighted. Okay, right. So just as a high level overview for you guys to know that what actually is the auditor's role and also what is the expectation gaps of auditors, right? Now, knowing that actually most of you must have spoken to a lot of your seniors or maybe your family friends, or your brother, sister's friends, older than you, or what is audit like, right? They tell you, oh, there's a lot of photocopying, you need to go and do a lot of verification of vouching work, which is actually verifying all the invoices and all this, right? And then after that, do a lot of casting work, meaning to do mathematical computation, checking all the numbers are accurate, right? Do a lot of aligning when you're formatting reports. You do a lot of aligning, formatting words, documents, making sure that it looks nice in pages. And then definitely you will definitely heard that it's definitely OT, work very late, a lot of work, a lot of paperwork, a lot of administrative work. And when you are working with clients that are very large and very digitalized, right, then you will see that there's a lot of Excel data that you have to go through, files, soft copies, a lot of data that you always be working on. And then it is also a very fast-paced and stressful life, right? And after lastly, it's actually dealing with very difficult clients. Sometimes clients are not very nice to auditors because they always think that auditors are here to find fault with them, and then they will be very hostile towards you. And they say whatever you tell them, they will be very unfriendly, right? In fact, let me share with you actually all of these are actually correct. Audit life is actually very tough, right? And that is something that we can't deny, right? And in fact, most of the people, why do you want to go into audit, right? This is where I will bring you guys to my first point, right? Why should you go into the audit life, right? First thing first is actually on the steep learning curve, right? As an auditor, the life, yes, I will tell you that it is tough. To the extent that my parents, when they saw me going through audit, coming home at 3 a.m. in the morning, and then I just so happened, my mom was laying in the living room, and then she saw me come back. Then once I came back at 3 a.m., I not going to shower, I sat down, I opened my laptop, I continued working until probably about 5 o'clock. Then only I went to bed, and the next morning I went back to work at about 9 something, right? Yes, I will tell you that it is very tough, but however, right, that is what I wanted from this whole experience, is that to have that steep learning curve, right? That there's this quote that you always see in the in Google and all this, right? That there's this cycle, right, where there's hard times will create strong men will create good times, and then good times create weak men, and then weak men create hard times, right? So audit is actually a tough life, and also it's like something like a hard time. But and that's where how I've shared here is that this is where the area is hard times, but it will create a very strong man out of you, right? Because whether is it on technical development, personal development, mindset development, right? It actually builds up a character, right? In most of us during this tough time, and most of how I see, right, from my experience with friends or mainly friends that went through audit and friends that did not go through audit. We were also doing accounting. We started doing ACCA, but some of them, they did not want to go through audit. They just, okay, fine, I just go and do an accounting work and do something simple, or they exit audit directly. There is a difference because you can see that those that have went through audit, right, whether or not a short period or a fairly long period, it is usually more tahan lasak, right? For those that actually went through audit, and there are still some other development skills that I'll share later on, right? But it is more of having that first, when you're still young, you have that energy, right? You try to learn as much as you can and go through that tough life now, because you want to be sitting at when you want to rest, right? Or you want to go into a very more stable pace, right? You don't want to start at a lower level, right? You, of course, you want to learn as much as you can as you go up the ranks, and then subsequently you stay at a position that you are more comfortable with, right? So I would say that the steep learning curve will actually give you that. So later on, I'll share a bit more on what does it mean by that. And mainly this is where I think that you will go through a tough time, but that is where it will build you as a person, as a character, or as an individual, right? Whether in the technical, personal, or relationship-wise, right? That will really actually build you up. Okay, right? So then the next thing that will usually be of interest to most of you, right, is actually career progression, right? Let me share a bit, because there are some differences in terms of the progression, but most of you might have heard that actually I have to be an associate actually to start as an audit, right? Normally it will take you 2 years, right, to become an associate, right? Associate, usually year 1, year 2 associate, and subsequently you'll be promoted to senior associate. You'll spend another 2 years as senior associate, right? And then after that, normally you go into an assistant manager position. Either they call it executive senior supervisor, really is the assistant manager role, right? Depending on the firm, you will be around really 1 or 2 years as an assistant manager, right? And then subsequently you'll become a manager, right? So you can see that there's 2 years, 3 years, 1 to 2 years, and then really managers will be 3 years, right? So for a career progression, it is quite fair. It's considered fast because technically you use about approximately 5 to 6 years to actually reach a manager role, right? So if to say you go to a commercial practice, right, you won't have this kind of development and career progression, right? On this note, right, it's basically career progression in the sense that if everything goes smoothly for you, like to say you keep getting stuck in between that, of course, it's lesser than 5 to 6 years. It's more than 5 to 6 years. However, right, if to say everything goes smoothly for you, right, it will take approximately 5 to 6 years, right? I personally became an assistant manager at the age of 26, and then subsequently I was promoted to manager role by the age of 27, right? So actually, in terms of the progression, it does give that fast. So you see, as an associate, you will really do a lot of groundwork, a lot of technical basics, a lot of field work per se, right? After that, subsequently, when you go to senior role, right, you will take on more of a team leader role, right? You will be dealing with more complex issue, right? You will be talking with finance manager, more higher level people, right? And then when you go into the assistant manager and manager role, you'll be managing your team as a whole, and managing portfolios, managing the client, managing timeline, deadlines, managing the partners, right? So you will be switching in terms of those areas, and that's where you develop skills, right? So in terms of career progression, is to say you would like to continue to become a partner, right, in a maybe mid to big size firm, right? The cycle is usually 2 years associate, 2 years senior, 1 to 2 years assistant manager approximately usually about 3 years. Next level will be a senior manager role, right? When you go to the senior manager role, then why I put that as an infinity sign is because there is no say ranking per se in the senior manager, right? Meaning to say, when you come to a senior manager role, whether or not you get promoted to the next level as a director, right, depends on whether or not they have a business case for you and whether or not they want to promote you as a director. And after you promote to the director, right, there's another infinity cycle, whether or not you will be able to make it to partner, right, in the next level, right. The fastest I have heard in a big four that actually made from starting out a career to become a partner is 17 years in a big four, and that is one of the fastest that I've heard already, right? So this is basically a career progression, right? As you can see, right? Actually, it progresses very fast, and if you say you want to stop yourself at a manager role and quit audit by then, right? Is okay, right? Because actually, in terms of audit, it is not for everyone for the long term, right? I have not actually thought of, I will become a partner one day today, right? But I was glad that I have continued that journey, right? Later on, I also share a bit on how and why I have become a partner, right? So in terms of this, at least you all gauge an idea is that this is how you're going to progress, right? Mainly, you need to be most concerned is on this part of the area, which is the associate, senior, associate level, assistant manager, and team manager level, right? And this is where you just have to think for at this moment. As you go on into the career and started working, right, you will have your own thoughts on how you want to progress in your future, and that's where you will think. But for you at this moment as a student thinking to start your career, just focus at the first 6 years. Okay. Now, right. So another area, right, that usually we will talk about is actually on the professional qualification, right? In general, most of the professional bodies, and including MIA, right, requires a 3 years practical experience, right? And then therefore you will qualify as one of their members, right? This provided that you finish their exams and etc. Right? Back in the days, it's not only audit is really the fastest route. In terms of accounting or other routes, usually last time back in my days was you require 5 years. And now when I look into the website and all, they say as long as you have 3 years practical experience in the relevant field, right, then you can actually become one of the members already, right? So that is where you can consider working in audit for 3 years, get your relevant experience, and subsequently either completing your ICCA or your professional qualification. And if you decide to move to other areas, then that's where you can move on, and that's where later on I will share with you guys on what's next and how do you progress and the thought process in terms of this, right? Okay, right. One area that I think is the most critical in terms of being in audit, right, is actually not really the technical skills, right? The technical skills where we talk about is the MFRS, MPERS, the accounting standards, the auditing standards in the Companies Act. All this you will learn through the job, right? But that eventually, if you say you exit accounting, you exit auditing, that actually has no value to you, right? You know accounting, but when you go to do marketing, right, that doesn't help you at all. You can't be telling people about MFRS and PERS. But what is the most important and to me the most relevant thing that you take away from audit, right, is the soft skills, right? Building up the soft skills, and that's where that skill can bring you anywhere you want to. In terms of when you want to exit to go into other fields, that is where your soft skills comes into play, right? One of the key things here is that first area is critical thinking and analytical skills. So when you are more critical, you always think about skeptical thinking, right? You have always look into numbers. Why is that being like this? Whether the thing is logical, whether this number makes sense, whether this correlation makes sense or not. This, because you are always looking at numbers as an auditor, right? You try to drive numbers, you try to do analysis on why are the things, the root cause and the reasons for this, which then makes you, in terms of your day-to-day, you will question, you will be trying to find out, hey, why is this, why that? And this actually sometimes it comes with consequences, right? Why I say so is that because when I was home, when I'm with my wife, and then suddenly when she does something, and then I go and ask her, hey, why you do like that? Why is this thing this? And then in terms of I will be always asking her why this, why that, why this, then she'll be scolding me, hey, can you don't be auditor at home, right? Don't keep asking why. So I would like to understand, I would like to think, and every time I will try to understand, would that thing make sense? Does it jive with what I understand? Things like that, right? If of which when you go bring this skill to your day-to-day work, right, is that you will analyze the situation much more better and make sounder decision making in the future, right? So that is one of the skills that you slowly develop when you're in audit, right? Another thing is on adaptability, right? In terms of adaptability is that because audit is a job-based thing, so you don't stay in a very routine cycle, right? And usually when we send our team members out for work, right, is we either send them on maybe a 2 weeks on this job, another 1 month on this job, right? So they have to adapt very quickly, whether to the people, to the environment, to the accounting system, to the business operation, or the industry knowledge, right? As overall, you have to adapt quickly so that you can understand, and then you can apply that knowledge and to do the audit more effectively and efficiently, right? So adaptability in terms of people as well, because you don't always deal with the same people, right? You will be meeting this client for these 2 weeks. After that, you will meet with another client for the next 1 month, right? Different people have different dealings, and at the same time, when you go to the client's place, you don't usually deal with one people. You will deal with multiple departments. You deal with different levels of people, right? Then you will have to learn how to adapt to them as well, right? So adaptability is one of the things that you slowly build up, right? Next thing is on problem solving, right? When we actually, to be honest, in terms of audit, there's always problems, right? And therefore, we will always try to resolve problems on a day-to-day basis. Whether is it a logistic on audit, whether I don't have enough team members to work on an engagement, there's a sudden deadline, there's some miscommunication, right? I had to clear with client things, issues. These are all problem solving. And because there is an issue, you have to find a solution. And therefore, you start to develop the skill in terms of problem solving, right? That's how we, I personally have actually built up that problem solving skills because every day we see issues, every day we see problems, and we are just solving problems on a day-to-day basis, right? Next thing is actually on multitasking, right? So audit is a fast-paced environment, right? And there are times that unfortunately things will backlog because clients are not catching up. They are doing at their own pace. You are rushing that I only have 2 weeks with you. I need to finish all my things now. And then they say, oh, I'll give you in 2 weeks time. I'll complete this later on. And then that's where you will start to may have a situation that you will be double tapping on jobs. And that's why you will need to do multitasking, right? You need to multitask. You need to manage your current team. You manage your previous client. You need to manage your managers in terms of reporting to them. You need to manage your juniors. What is their job scope? Have they completed their work? Monitoring their progress, right? And these are skill sets that you slowly build up because things going to happen all together, right? And imagine if you say you are not a person that can do this, right? And you just go into a commercial and just started doing, you can't handle because there's too many things coming to you at once. But after you've been through audit, you will feel that actually all this okay, I can handle. These are simple things. I have 2 jobs. Yes, I know, stressful, right? But actually, it's manageable because I know how to prioritize and then managing it by how do you manage what is more important first, prioritize those that is important, and then work on the rest as it goes, right? So multitasking will become one of the skill sets, right? So this 4 is a bit more of technical, a bit slightly to the not so communication type. It's like more technical part of it. The next 4 is more on people, right? So one thing is on communication, right? Prior to this, sometimes when you go into audit, right, when you talk to client, right, you will need to share your views or try to communicate certain or some of your thought process and what you're trying to explain to your client, right? This is the issue here, but they couldn't understand, or they will feel very offended or very defensive against you because they tell you that actually I've been doing this for the past 10 years, right? Why are you telling me this is wrong now? It is not according to accounting standard. So communicating clearly to your client is also one of the skill set, because when you cannot communicate clearly, when the other party cannot understand you clearly, right, then the communication breaks down, the relationship gets worsened, and then you won't be able to work as effective or efficient, right? And that's how slowly, when you apply this back to your other areas, right, you will learn how to communicate more clearly in terms of trying to reduce the misunderstanding, right? Another part is called interpersonal skills, right? Interpersonal skill is different with communication, right? The communication skill is whether or not you are able to give clear instructions, right, and conveying what you are trying to what you need. However, in terms of interpersonal skill, is actually the ability to communicate and interact with other people, right? Maybe I give you an example, right? If to say if you have very strong interpersonal skills, means that you are very charming, you are very nice, you can be very good around people, but actually you cannot communicate because you keep giving very confusing instructions to your team until your team cannot understand what you're trying to say. While they say, "Are you a nice person?" Yes, you're very nice. Is it good to be with you? Yes, very nice, very fun to be around you. You are very respectful thing. But when they ask, "So can you understand what she wants?" Actually, I don't know what he wants. Right. So that is when you have interpersonal skill, but you don't have communication skill. On the other hand, right, you can have very good communication skill. It means that you can give very clear instructions. The person know exactly what they need to do. But however, you have no interpersonal skill, meaning to say that you may be a very rude person, or you are a person that is always very cold, very cruel, right? Then that is where this is the interpersonal skills side, right? And then another part is on leadership, right? As just now you see it, as we progress in terms of the career progression, right? You actually build up your leadership, because by the time you go into the senior role or even the second year associate, right, you start to take on to lead smaller teams, right? And as you move on to assistant manager role, you will have to build up that leadership skill to lead a team and manage the team accordingly, right? And then lastly, right, it's actually building on EQ, right? Why I say so is because sometimes dealing with clients, even you have very good communication skill, very good interpersonal skills, you have good leadership, but if you have no EQ, right, you cannot manage your emotions, and you keep shouting at your team members, eventually nothing gets through, right? And how I see is that sometimes I deal with very funny clients. I do have clients that are very hard to deal with. When you tell them things they cannot understand, they will try to fight you every along the way. So resulting that it's very hard to communicate. And in order to hold back that eager to scold them, right? That's how sometimes we will need to manage our emotions. So that is where the soft skill development is. So in short, right, as a high level, right, this is the list of soft skills that you can develop accordingly, right? It's not exhaustive, but this is something that I have thought of that may be able to share with you guys, right? Now, so why is soft skills so important is because as you go up the ranks, right, you can see at the earlier stage as an auditor associate and senior associate, the time you spend is actually more on building up your technical skill. But eventually, when you move on to a manager and partner role, a lot of time is about people management, means managing your team members, managing your superior, and and subsequently, also one more thing is to external, which is the client relationship, managing clients, interpersonal skill, communication skills with the client, right? So eventually, if to say these skills goes, you don't apply the technical skills, right? It's about how you manage people in the future. So whether or not you are going to be an auditor, you're going to be a finance manager, or you're going to go be a marketing person, it all goes down to people management and client relationship. So that is actually one of the key things that you can really develop in the audit field, right? Now, another thing about being in audit is actually kind of so-called future-proof. Why I say so is because as earlier, most of you all would have chosen audit, accountant, or tax as your primary career choices to start off your job. Fair enough, because you are in the accounting role, right? So let me shoot out this area, right? In terms of why I say future-proof is because looking at the graph, right, you can see that there's a difficult to automate, somewhat automatable, highly automatable, and fully automatable, right? Originally, I wanted to give you all some poll on this, but I feel like the time is not very sufficient, so probably I'll just share with you guys, right? You see, in terms of a general accounting operations, right, and this is actually a research done back in 2018, right? Actually, at that point in time, for a general accounting operation, they have already identified 77% of it, of the work can already be fully automatable, right? And then there's a 12% that's highly automatable, somewhat, and the 12% is somewhat automatable, right? You can see it doesn't tie, you know, as an auditor, we should say, the amount didn't tie to 100. This is because of rounding, so we just live with it, right? So the thing is that you can see that in the future, right? And with looking at your current environment, looking into all your, as simple, you go and buy a cup of coffee, the system that they use, right, is all on iPad. And usually this iPad is actually integrated to the back end on the accounting system. So technically you have no need for a person to be there to actually transfer this data anymore, right? It all just flows into the GR, flows into the accounts. Back then, if you see, you look at a cashier, right? Yeah, that is the time that you need to do a lot of manual work. But in the current climate, right, actually a lot of accounting operations is already automatable. So actually, in the future, right, will there be any more accountants job? Probably yes, but very few, because they probably will need only 1 or 2 accountants compared to they will need a full finance department of 10 to 20 people just to work on accounts, right? So that is the risk on as an accountant per se. In tax, right, they are better. It is better in the sense that there are still areas that is judgmental when it comes to tax, and therefore it is not so easy to automate the tax function. So you can see that there's still a difficult to automate portion, right? And lastly, then it comes to audit, right? Audit actually is one of the things that you can see. Audit requires there's 40% is very difficult to automate, and then there's 40% which is somewhat automatable, right? Why is this so? Is because audit requires a lot of judgment, right? It requires a lot of critical thinking and to look into assessment analysis, looking at data, whether it jives or not. Because sometimes audits, you need a lot of views and how do you account for certain things, whether or not that thing makes sense. Because accounting is just data entry, but whether or not that number makes sense or not requires a person to look at it. We can have certain system to prompt you like to prompt something that is out of the norm. Right? Say for example, you can just put a percentage on it to how to prompt that as like this percentage doesn't make sense. When it exceeds like 30% or 40%, it doesn't make sense. You can use those to automate, right? But why doesn't it make sense, or what is the basis, or what is the issue behind it, right? That requires auditors to look into it, study it, and then assess whether or not is it an issue or not. So you can see that as time passes, right, there will be areas that you will find work and areas that you can't find work, right? And audit is actually a very highly demand career, right? Big job, right? Where actually in the market, if you go on Job Street, go to Easy Career Fest, right? Most of it are audit firms looking for people, right? And just bear in mind, right? This study was done in 2018. We are now at 2022, right? With the MCO itself, right? Actually, more and more things become virtual. More and more things is actually going on cloud, and AI and automation technology actually has advanced the accounting world very much in front of us already. So yes, I wouldn't say that there is no job in the future for accountants, but there will be much more fewer compared to back in the days. Okay, right. So exposure to different industries, right? This is more on when when people ask you to go and join it. No, there's a lot of exposure. So what does it mean by exposure, right? In fact, these are right the areas of career industry or businesses that I have actually worked on, right, over the past 10 years, right? And these are not like those touch and go type of engagement. These are engagement that actually I spend a lot of time working with them on the audit itself, right? And to be honest, one of those that is actually most interesting to me, right, is actually in the gaming, right? This part, right? And the gaming on, because when we talk about gaming, it's actually a casino, right? Actually, I've done this back in 2010, right? 2010, so it's more than 12 years ago, right? But I have a very fond memory of doing the audit, because it is the casino is not in Malaysia, it's not Genting, right? It is based in overseas, right? And then we actually sent a team there, which is 6 of us that is based there, and we spend 1 month in that country and then in the hotel to just do the audit, right, on the gaming. So casino actually quite interesting, but a lot of people feel, wow, very nice. But actually, when we are there, because we have a very short period of time, there's a lot to do. and then we have nowhere to go. Technically, from Monday to Sunday, we are working. Right, from morning 9 o'clock, we start working. After dinner, we continue to work in our own room, or we continue work at the office. And because Saturday and Sunday we don't really have anywhere to go, we continue to work also. Right, it's tough. Then if in fact some of the stock take, actually the stock take is not really stock take, it's actually cash count. Right, they will literally go and pick up all the cash from all the machines, and then they will go and do a cash count. And we as auditors, we are supposed to go and look at them, see how they are doing the cash count. And then this happened at 4 o'clock in the morning, right? So we had to wake up in the 4 o'clock in the morning and then follow all of them to go and do the cash count, finish the cash count, go back, shower, change, then go back to work, right? This like you look at you hear this, you feel, wow, I have to go to overseas, I cannot play, I need to work 7 days a week, OT every day, and then after that to wake up at 4 o'clock in the morning, go and do cash count. Tough. But actually, this is one of the best time I had, right? And then we actually built a very good relationship and friendship with that team that is there, right? And we are very close. Then after that, we still keep in contact until today, just to chit chat. Of course, as we are busy and things like that. Of course, there will be some gaps, but at least we are still keeping in contact, making sure that everyone is okay, right? And then we still chat. We still have a good chat rising from that, right? So exposure to different industries. This is where you can learn a lot about the industry. Like, if not, you wouldn't have actually go and study what is oil and gas services, what is oil and gas, or what is the developer and construction businesses, right? In terms of media, right? I work in a newspaper media as well. So I understand what is the business model. And in fact, not many people will know, actually, for every newspaper, right, that they sell, actually they are losing money, right? But why do they sell? How do they make money from that? That is actually from the advertisement. And that translate to why advertisement on a newspaper is so expensive, right? So things like that, right? You will slowly learn and understand the business industry as it goes, right? Now, another thing is that I like about audit is that you will work with a very young and vibrant team, right? I feel that for me personally, when I was coming out to work as an auditor, I wanted to be working with different people. I don't want to be in an environment that I just work with 2-3 people reporting to the same boss, and then every day doing everything is routine. I like a very exciting life. I want to work with people that's of my age group, right? So in fact, now it's a very different timing for me because I'm now as a partner. But as you guys, what do you want? Do you want to be working with a person that is not your age group, right? And then you just 3 of you, 4 of you always sitting in office alone, or you can work with different team members, which is approximately your age group, right? And then after that, you're switching team members, going to different clients, seeing different people, going to different environments, right? That is exciting to me, right? So just to share, this is my team member. You can see that most of them are very young, right? I'm the oldest there already, right? And so another thing, right, is that because when we are a very young team, we will have like sports day, company trips, right? This is before the MCO, the pandemic, so this is back in 2019, right? 2018 and 2019, right? And after that, we will have annual dinner, which is right before the MCO started, right? And then also we will also go and join IAFG before the pandemic, so we will join IAFG. At the same time, we will do CSR projects with the Lions recently, probably earlier this year, right? We have done a CSR project with Lions. So we will have this kind of program that we work with the team members, with younger teams, right? If you say you go to a more stagnant environment, it's just day-to-day work processing, work routine, right? So these are the things that exciting times that I feel that it is good to be in when you are young. And then is to say you want to move out from this environment later on, try out this first, right? Yes, the work is tough, but it comes with other benefits as well, right? And then one thing is that this is the recent gift exchange that we have, right? You can see that across different groups, we have different teams that does it, but it's like we still have our own mini group, because due to pandemic, we did not do a firm-wide, but at least from each of the groups or the tax department, the audit department, or the audit subgroups, right? We did our own. So at least there's some sharing, and makan just to at a safe SOP, right? To actually reach to that environment, right? So okay, right. This is basically all my pointers in terms of why you should join an auditor, right? However, just as a from just now what I have shared, right? Steep learning curve, career progression, professional qualification, the soft skill development, whether it's future proof or not, the exposure to different industries, and a young and vibrant team. So after hearing from me, right, which actually excites you to actually become an auditor, right? Just to share, right, what actually attracts you the most that you would maybe want to give audit a try, right? Which one will be the key thing that you think that is gonna make you consider doing audit as well? Right, maybe just share in the message box. See what are your, let me just gauge, how are you guys thinking on this? Exposure to industry, BE, career progression, future proof. Okay, BF, career progression, and exposure to different industry. Okay. DF, soft skill development, exposure to different industries. C, professional qualification, future proof. Okay. Okay. If anybody else have any that you can just continue to share, right? And I think one of the things that is good is that the progression is actually one of the key, right? I would say that progression is one of the key that you all can grow as and you can move on the ranks the faster, right? And then the next thing is actually on your exposure to different industry, learning curve, right? So good that some of this that actually gives you some idea in terms of what can audit help you to develop you as a person, as an individual, how and subsequently how do you move on to your next career, right? Okay, so now the thing is that, yeah, I tell you about the pro and cons and things like that, then you'll say, oh, very good, very good. Then in the end, I still have to go and think for myself, do I want to go into audit? I would like to share a concept with you guys, right? This is a concept that I've thought. Eventually, it's that I did not think of this when I was going into the audit, but actually I thought about this when I was in audit halfway, right? And then I kind of look back into my own progression and see, hey, actually, this is a very good concept, right? And I call this the 1, 2, 3 concept, right? What does it actually mean? Is that actually it means that you can see that 1 year, 2 years, and 3 years, right? In total, this is not looking into up to 3 years. It's actually in totality is a 6 year concept, right? What it means is actually on the first year, right? The first year when you decide to start your career as an auditor, right? Just go through the 1 year, right? Don't think about leaving audit, right? Don't think about trying to, it's very tough. I think I want to quit tomorrow. I think this is not the job for me. But because it's going to be tough. Eventually, how tough it's going to be, definitely very tough. But the thing is that you must go through that 1 year. If you decide to start, just focus into finishing your 1 year, right? Then only you decide again, do you want to quit audit? You have a proper cut off, right? At least you have gone through, you gave yourself a chance, you went through that suffering, you feel that, okay, it's not for me, right? Then you choose to leave, right? Okay, right? That is where it's a good cut off point. At least you have done your tryout for yourself. You have a responsibility to yourself that, okay, I have done it. But if you say after you completed that 1 year, right, and you think that actually I can do it, I still love this environment, I still want to learn more, I think there's more to learn, right? Then you must continue for the next 2 years. Meaning to say you must complete a total of a 3 year. Why so? Because like just now we mentioned, the professional qualification, most of it takes about 3 years to actually qualify as a member practical experience. So here, 3 years, right? Another thing is that when you leave as a senior role, right, at least you have completed 1 year of senior, right? Actually, when you go up and you go into a commercial and go into accounting, right, at least you can be a simple team leader role, right? You may not be a manager, right, but at least you are not there as a junior. You can be something like a senior role to lead a team of maybe 2 or 3 people. At least you have something, right? And you can continue to build your skill set from there, right? That is where your soft skill and leadership skill have been developed because you actually went through 1 year of senior, right? So that is the proper cut-off point, right? And then lastly, if you say after your senior 1 year role, and then you say, okay, I think I still want to do this, I think I can still tahan in audit, then you must complete another 3 more years, right? So in total, you must go through 6 years. why the next 3 years is because you must have a meaningful exit, right? If you don't have the right exit point, what will happen is actually when you join, like you go through a second year senior, then you exit, right? You are neither here nor there because you are not you are a team leader, but you have the capability of an assistant manager, but they won't give you assistant manager because they think that you are not a manager role, right? Maybe you'll be stuck at assistant manager, or if they are nice enough, they give you assistant manager, you are assistant manager, and you cannot override your manager because you must wait for the person to leave, and then likelihood they will be hiring another auditor to come in and become your boss. So that's where the meaningful exit is, that you must go out at the right point, exit at the right point, if to say you choose to continue as the role. And why I say you complete your manager role is because you when you just promoted to a manager, right, you don't have the managerial skill, right? Then the hiring new company also will feel that actually you are not a manager. Yes, you took the title of manager, but you only have 1 year. Have you managed a portfolio? How many people have you managed? Have you deal with this type of client? Have you deal with a portfolio of clients? Right? You may not have, and that experience actually doesn't give you that. You have the title, but you do not have the experience, and therefore they might not give you a managerial role at all. So if you have completed the manager, because you see the year one, when you assuming the assistant manager is 1 year, right, then actually you have actually completed your manager year one, right, and therefore you actually have developed the managerial skill. And the manager skills, and also when you are doing an audit senior, right, it's very different, right? I did see last time back in the days, right, I have very outperforming seniors, right, meaning they are really very good at doing work. They are very well in terms of performing, delivering work timely. But however, when they go up to a manager, they actually underperform. And because the key thing is that when you go to a manager, it's like a sudden paradigm shift. You shift into managing people rather than managing engagement. Yes, you will need the technical area, but the more important one is actually on managing people. And when you cannot manage people, that is where you fail as a manager, right? So this concept actually, to be honest, I think is very useful for as a person, as myself. Actually, I actually went through this cycle, and then finally when I completed my first year of manager, then that's where I thought of trying to leave audit, right? So you can see, going back to my progression, right? Actually, I did apply the 1, 2, 3 concept, right? In fact, I actually spent more than 6 years to complete it. One of the reasons is because when I moved on from BDO Malaysia to PwC Malaysia, I lost progression because BDO is when I promote, I'm a December promotee, and then after that, when I go to PwC Malaysia, their promotion round is June, so I use 1.5 years in order to make it to senior in totality, right? But you can see that actually applies when I became a manager when I was in PwC Singapore, right? And then I completed my 1 year there, right? And then after due to I want to come back and get married, start my family, so I decided to leave Singapore, and then I came back. And back at that point in time, I don't even know, should I continue audit or should I go into commercial? But in fact, I still have passion for audit at that point in time. That's why you can see that in September 2016, I left audit. I left Singapore, sorry, and then when I came back to Malaysia first, and after that only I moved into a mid-sized firm, which is Morrison AC, right, to continue my career, because I wanted something more. I don't want to just be a manager for the rest of my life. I want to be a senior manager. I don't want to use 70 years to make partner. So I decided to move on, right? Then I came to a mid-size, of which I developed much more skills than what I could have developed as a manager or senior manager in the Big Four, right? So one of the things is that yes, you may not need to be working in the same firm. Right? The idea is that I'm not asking you to stay in the firm for 1 year, 3 years, or 6 years, right? But of course, there are chances that you may move. But of course, if that environment gives you a very solid training ground, then okay, you can continue with that firm, and then choose the right exit point where you want to move on to the next career, and then that's where you do. Because I can understand audit may not be for everybody, but actually audit is like a highway, right? So when you are on the highway, you are speeding down the road. If you want to cruise, you should cruise at a very kind comfortable when you want to change lane. In terms of change lane means you want to change to commercial or anything. Make sure that you change lane into a place that you are very comfortable, a position that you're very comfortable. So at least if I make it to manager in audit already in 6 years, I can move on to maybe a trading company as a finance manager. At least I'm comfortable. I feel that I had to build up the skill set. I continue my career here as a more stable and more routine work. Fair enough, right? Not that's why the learning curve is very much towards the beginning, and then after subsequently you choose when you want to go into that stable life, right? So just to share, right? Actually we are actually hiring now, right? We are still hiring the audit associates, audit and tax associate intern. So if you are looking for a job, I know most of you are actually going for your exam. You are after your exam, you will be graduating, right? So if you are interested to join us, right, can actually send your resume to recruitment@hrb.lam.chu, right? We are actually approved employers for the major, most of the major professional qualifications, right? We are actually a platinum status for ACCA. So I believe most of you are actually on ACCA, so we are platinum status for ACCA, right? And then if you just now you didn't get this recruitment, you cannot find this, right? You can always find us on Facebook, LinkedIn, and also on the website, right? Okay. Before we go to the Q&A, got something that I would like to share with you guys, right? This is more on a personal level. It's not really nothing really related to audit per se, right? This is a concept that I would like to share with all the students here, right? Because you guys are going through exam, you will face times that you are very down. I cannot finish this, I cannot finish that. A lot of things coming together, too many things at one go, right? There's this guy called Ramit Sethi, right? He is actually an entrepreneur and author, right? He actually spoke about one story that you can take control at the basic level, right? This link, right? This link here is actually I have created this QR code that will bring you to the video. That will start at 32 minutes 17 seconds. Then you just have to watch until about 35 minutes, right? Just listen to the story at that point in time. The concept is that actually there is a story that he shared, right, about a person, actually a lady called him and then tell him that actually I would like to go running for 3 days a week, right? And then after that, then he answered to the lady, said, hey, then why not you just go run for one day, right? Then after that, the lady said, what does running 1 day for me do, right? Actually, what can that do? You just go and run 1 day doesn't make a difference, right? But actually, that's where the problem is, because the person rather dream about actually running 3 days a week than to just actually go and run for 1 day, right? So that is actually the concept that he shared, that we can take control at the very basic level. And in fact, me personally, I'm actually a very perfectionist person. And if I want to do something, I must finish. If I don't finish, I will not start. I'm that kind of person, of which it created to a lot of problems where things are not done because I say, oh, I cannot finish this today. I just rather don't do, right? But however, after seeing his video, I took on the concept that, okay, every day I do a bit, see how it goes. But that brings up the momentum. It eventually builds up to making most of my work, whether from my personal level and also from my work side, actually it has a very significant improvement. Just as an example, this slide, right? This slide actually I built it from scratch, right? When I was notified that we are going to do this presentation, right? If the me from back then, I would have just not do it until the day that I think I can sit down for 8 hours, go and finish this, I will do it. But then there will never be 8 hours free from a day. Right? So I started to just do, every day I just do one slide, I just touch on a bit. When I have an idea, I write it down, and then I just slowly build it up. And in fact, actually this slide was already completed last week already, right? And then just do a bit of minor touch up, and then that's it. So the idea is that you can always take control at the basic level. So this is something that I would like to share with all the students here, right? And just go and find this video. If you can't find this video, just look for Ramit Sethi, right? And then after that, it is from a program called Impact Theory, right? So you can see that on this is to say, in the event really you cannot find this, then later on I can share something with you guys as well, right? So okay, that ends my presentation, right? Any questions or anything that the floor, the students would like to ask me regarding audit life, about how do you apply the concept, and anything that, or anything that you all feel like you all want to know, right? Because there will be a lot of dying questions that most of you guys want to ask, because back then when we have career fairs, we are able to share some of our views, share some of the ideas behind the audit field. But however, due to the lack of a career fair, we are unable to engage. In fact, when there's having career fair in Thai, you see, I personally, and the other partners, we actually go down to talk to the students, right? So if you have any questions, you can ask, right? That you want to be addressed from with the other people. Anything that anyone want to ask? I believe they will be very shy. Let me see.
So, student, do you have any question for our speaker?
Okay, looks like not many of you are having to regret to become an auditor. To be honest, there are times that I feel very down, because audit is actually quite a stressful life, right? But if you ask me whether I have regretted to become an auditor, actually no lah, right? I would say that there are up and down, right? But regret really don't have. But I appreciate that actually I started my life as an auditor, because it really builds up a lot of character and soft skills that I have built on today, to the extent that some of the people will ask me, hey, actually, with your skill set, why do you still want to be an audit? Why don't you just go and do sales? Why don't you do and go and do other things that you can make more money? But I like to work in a team. I like to work with a team that is young and vibrant, right? So as a partner, when I lead my team members, actually I like seeing them, right? To be involved, and I like to work with different people. I love to work with different clients. So I still enjoy that the things that I shared with you guys, I still enjoy those moments per se, right? How do you achieve work-life balance? At the beginning, to be honest, it's actually that no work-life balance, right? I work quite hard until when I reach probably manager, right? Manager level, right? Then I was able to achieve a bit work-life balance, right? How I achieve that is because when you go to a manager role and above, right? It's not about you getting how well you do your technical skills, right? Not how well you can do your groundwork. It's about sometimes how well you manage your team members. Of course, you will still have the reviewing work technical side of things, but actually there will require some effort that you try to achieve the work-life balance. In fact, personally, I actually I have a baby right now. Actually, she's 19 months, right? And a lot of people will ask me also, how do I manage that between work, and then at the same time I have a family, and then after that I have a team that I need to manage. So one of the things that I've learned from this Remit-Satir is that I do things bit by bit, wherever when I can, I do bit by bit. I control things at a very basic level, and then I dedicate time to my family during the evening, around the dinner time to when she sleep. After that, either I sleep earlier together with my daughter, and then after that I wake up like 3 or 4 o'clock to start my day to work on files, right? Those that I can focus on, review files, so that, because when I'm in office, team members will keep looking for me to discussion, things like that. So I hardly have time to really sit down and review files. But the 3 to 4 o'clock time, that is where I would actually be able to focus and look at things, right? So yeah, it takes a bit more effort to actually achieve that work-life balance, but as you go along, the managing your things, the most important is that you must want that work-life balance, and then you are willing to sacrifice some of your lifestyle to actually balance it up, right? It's a very tricky part. I would say that it's not easy, but definitely it's doable, right? Is CIA very hard, or do we need to get the CIA? This is on certified internal audit, right? In fact, if to say you are going to go and do certified internal audit, I think no harm. Go and do it, right? Hard or not, I can't say because I have not done it. I would say that if your future career is that you want to be in internal audit, right? Then go ahead, go and do the CIA, right? Actually, is as you go into professional papers, it's all equally difficult, right? Because it's a lot of assessment, a lot of critical thinking type of papers. Is that when you go and do ACCA paper, ICW, CPA Australia, it's not about it's really not about, you know, how do you do this calculation, how do you compute this, right? What is the correct number that turns up? It's all about assessment, it's about risk assessment, it's about technical thinking, critical thinking, what is the risk, things like that, right? So if you are interested in CIA and your career is in towards internal audit, I would say that you can go for it. But if to say you are still not sure, right, then you maybe might want to take something that is more general, which is like ACCA, ICW. Then from there on, right, then you decide whether you want to go into CIA or not. In fact, as an as a auditor, you can always move on to internal audit with ACCA. CIA is just a certificate, but of course you learn some technical skills from there, lah, right? But end of the day, practical skills will be the predominant skills that you will learn, right? And technical will go behind you. Like in fact, like ACCA, all this, we learn the technical already. After that, a lot of it is from field work and day-to-day job. Okay. Which would you recommend, ACCA or ICW? I personally, right, I would say ACCA is easier, right? Because it's not comparing with the two lah. It will be easier because it is actually ICW. You can only fail 4 times in the final papers. One of the papers you can only attempt 4 times. If you fail, then you have to either restart or you have to drop ICW. And ICW has one more restriction, is that you need to have practical experience, and then you will have another thesis at the end. So I personally find that is the very hard route for me. So back in the days when I want to just quickly complete my studies, ACCA was the fastest for me and the easiest way, and in a way also cheapest way lah back then compared to ICW, right? So I would consider ACCA. It depends on what you want. If to say you want the prestiginess, ICW will have that prestiginess, right? Because ICW is not easy, but ACCA is more general. But having said that, ACCA now has provided a lot of support as well from the professional side. So it is helpful to be in ACCA as a member as well, right? Because you can see now the ACCA Malaysia, right? They are actually very active in terms of supporting all of the members. So I personally have been dealing a lot with them, you know, in terms of they ask me to go and give talks, sharing, all this. I do engage with them, which is quite nice lah, right? So for studies, if you want the prestiginess, ICW. If you want the easier route, ACCA. Okay. Jen Ying said, do you suggest that we start a career in Singapore directly after, or better to get some experience in Malaysia? I would say that probably work in Malaysia first, right? Because the Singapore cost of living is also not cheap, right? It's not bad, but it's also not cheap. So at least if to say you start in Malaysia already, you work at least work until a senior role, right? And then you move on there. At least you have a decent income that you can have a better life in Singapore. Because if you join now, your income is limited. Your lifestyle may be a bit affected. Means you can't enjoy as much. But if you say you in Malaysia, at least you know you are with your family. You are staying in KL, or maybe you're outstation, you rent at KL. You build up that momentum first. Build up your ranks. When you go there, you are actually getting a decent income, and from there, then you have a much more comfortable life, lah. Right? In fact, actually, I personally, maybe to answer Yi Li and Hui Xing Lim and Chen Ying Chen Ying and also Hui Xing's question is that my personal view is that at least 3 years to complete at least 3 years in Malaysia before you go to Singapore, right? And I would suggest if you ever go to Singapore, go to the Big Four, right? So try not to be in the mid tier. Okay. Then so should I get say will it be useful in Singapore in the future? ACCA, yes, it is still useful, right? So just that in Singapore, right? She looks like all of you are very interested going to Singapore. And because I went to Singapore, and most of you were like, "Hey, why you come back from Singapore?" And in fact, when I came back to PwC Malaysia, I was quite known because it's like, who would be so crazy to come back from Singapore when you are already there, right? But yeah, actually, I have different life goals. That's why I wanted to continue my life in Malaysia, right, and have a family here instead of being in Singapore. But yeah, Singapore is a good grounds to go, right? But bear in mind is that you must have an objective if you ever step yourself to go in Singapore, right? And in a way, have some experience in Malaysia first, right? If you ever want to move into Singapore, move at a high level. Because I personally, when I was a senior, I was still able to stay quite comfortably. I am able to save money. I was able to enjoy life. So I have that balance. But if you say you go as a 2 junior level, you will be having difficulties in terms of, not the difficulties, but in terms of you are restricted in terms of your lifestyle. At the same time, you cannot really enjoy because you need to manage your cash flow per se, right? Brian asked the difference between CPA and ACCA. CPA Australia, right? So CPA Australia is a bit more practical based, right? Their training and their classes is a bit more online and more project based, if I'm not mistaken, right? And then their materials are also more interactive. ACCA is a bit more dull per se, right? So I would say that depending, you can go and do a bit of research. If you ask me, I would definitely recommend ACCA, but ACCA is the easiest and also the cheapest. And also in the future when you become a member, right, there are membership fees that you need to pay, and effectively that would be CPA is not cheap. CPA is a bit more expensive. So training ground to me is all the professional is actually fairly the same. It's just a passport towards your career, right? After you get that, right, it's about how you engage in the industry, on how do you manage with the people. In fact, I'm ACCA, but I also been involved in NICPA, and also MIA also come to us and ask us to join some of their subcommittees, right? So ACCA to me is just a passport. After that is about you, whether or not you spend time to continue in this career. It's not that heavy, but learning curve, I would say ACCA is the easiest because you don't really need to go anywhere to do it. You can just, even to be honest, if you are so capable, right, you can actually even self-study and then you can go for exam. That's the good part about ACCA, right? Did I answer most of your questions? Related to this, so I said before she told me that I could work in an audit firm, so I wondered if I can get in cost accounting by working in an audit firm. Not really. Probably UG, we can take this offline, right? I think Bob, I overrun already, right?
It's okay. You can answer the final question.
Okay. So I think, to be honest, cost accounting is very specific. Like I mentioned, on the technical side may not give you the cost accounting per se. You will have an understanding of cost accounting, but it doesn't train you to do cost accounting, and then it doesn't help in that sense. So I would say that probably starting as an auditor will build up the other skills, or if not, you can just straight away go into the cost accounting. Find something that's related to cost accounting, right? Okay, before you guys go, right, because I think there might be some people that you all are unable to talk to me closely, and you have some questions that you want to share, or you want to talk to me again, because I really want to engage with the students, and because due to the lack of career fair, we are unable to engage with you guys. So do connect with me on LinkedIn, right? You can look for my name in LinkedIn, right? Just look for this picture, then it's correct, it's me already, right? So also lastly, one more thing is that wishing, most of you, I know that you are going for exams, so wishing all of you a success in your exam, right? May good luck be in your favor, and all the best to all of you, right? And lastly, to to really submit a feedback to SCTC lah, right? So UG, if you have any further questions, you can come and connect with me on LinkedIn, right? Maybe we can take it out further. In fact, for most of you, do come and connect with me. Any questions, I will try to talk to you guys, have a more personal engagement. But bear with me lah. Maybe I will have my reply may be a bit slow, but just don't be shy. Just text me, then I will try to reply you guys as soon as possible. Yeah. So I think that's all from me, right? Hopefully you guys have something from today, and remember to submit your form to SCDC. They needed for your soft skills, right?
Okay, so
Yeah.
thank you, Mr. Tay, for his
Thank you very much.
sharing, and also I think this Q&A session is very beneficial for our student. And also, if the student have any question, you can also write in our feedback form or find Mr. Tay LinkedIn to ask your question. And also, first of all, I would like to thank Mr. Tay for his sharing. I believe his sharing has give a lot of benefit, and our student has gained a lot from Mr. Tay. Yeah. So
Thank you.
that's all for today webinar session. Okay, so student, before leaving, do remember to fill out the feedback form, and after you fill out the feedback form, also don't forget to follow our social media page for any upcoming event and also career internship opportunity. So thank you, Mr. Tay, once again, and you may leave the meeting room first as we require our student to fill out the feedback form. Yeah,
okay.
So you may leave first. Yeah, thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Thanks for having me. So have all the best to you guys. All the best to your exam. Right. Stay safe and take care. Right. Bye bye.
Thank you. Bye bye. So student, after you fill out the feedback form, you can also leave the meeting room. Thank you.